Welcome to the full experience, where we take 4 episodes of a TV show to get the full flavor of that TV show without watching the entire series. We watch the first, the ultimate, the lowest rated, and the last episode. We are in week 2 of our watch of The Wonder Years, the ultimate, highest rated episode, season 3, episode 20, Goodbye, which first aired on April 24th, 1990. I'm Tom Merritt. He's Brian Brushwood.
Tom, I think you have more confidence in the full experience than I do, because I still feel like we're stress testing this theory at all times.
Full experience, Brian.
Well, I mean, it's just...
there are no doubts, no questions, no room
for
debate.
No.
I sound more confident than I am.
I was about to say, the science is far from settled. I was there for MASH, Tom, and I strongly suspected that this highest rated episode, the ultimate episode, was going to be yet another Abyssinia, and it was not.
I thought it was going to be another instance, like you said, of, well, it was the highest rated because people were sentimental about it at the time. A good 10 minutes into this episode, I still thought that. I was like, okay, this seems like just a regular old episode. Like I thought we were going to be dealing with the main characters more. It seems like it's just Kevin at school. Like we're not even seeing him at home except for a real brief stint. And man, did I feel differently by the end of this episode, to the point where I totally flip-flopped from, I bet this is of its time, and for Wonder Years fans, to this is just a really good episode of television, independent of the Wonder Years.
So it's wild to remember. It's wild to remember that even as it was coming out, they intentionally were leaning into the bygone era of the 1960s, which meant that even by 1990s sensibilities, which is already still kind of painting by numbers when it comes to storytelling, they were able to lean a little bit even more paint by numbers-ish. And so we're sort of seeing, a copy of a copy of a copy, which is why, like, just beat for beat, I suspect, Tom, that all at once at that 10-minute mark, you realize, oh, I get what this episode is, and I get why it was highly rated. I bet they exactly nailed the timing on everything.
Not exactly. And maybe I'm a sap.
Really?
But I think I quickly guessed the issue when he gave Kevin the brush off at the car, right? And that's that's towards the end of the episode rather than early on.
Well, did you, I unfortunately read the title of the episode just before I go. And once I realized that a major character wasn't leaving, there was only one person to say the titular goodbye.
Yeah.
And so as a result, I'm like, oh, this is the episode where a child realizes that a teacher is an adult other person who actually has a life outside of class. And to be honest, that's one thing that the show's been very good at, 2 for 2, is capturing the dreamy just so-ness of public education in America. And I don't know, like I believed that moment of realization.
Yeah, and it wasn't, I think what I liked about it is it wasn't just goodbye, oh, he moved out of town. It wasn't just goodbye, oh, I'm moving on to a different class. It was, he died, and he did not let on. He did not give a hint to Kevin that was the case. And in addition to that, Kevin's reaction to it is more complex than it needed to be. This episode wasn't about death. It was about growing up. And death is one of the lessons you learn, along with confidence and self-reliance. And he learned those too.
Did they even say what he died of?
I don't think so.
I
want to say it was cancer, but I don't think they ever said that.
They didn't. They only referred to...
I think they said he'd been fighting it for a long time or something vague like that.
Paula says it was a heart attack. Okay.
Oh, it was a heart attack. But they said he'd been sick for a long time.
Yeah,
I know
clearly that's what the appointment that he couldn't get out of was.
Yeah,
unless I would love to believe that the backstory is that there was a complete supernatural thriller in which he had an appointment with Death himself, the Grim Reaper.
I have
I'll trade my soul.
And another one on Saturday. But yeah, I mean, it must have been something sudden because he clearly was still grading papers, right? Like right up until his death. So it wasn't like he went into the hospital and on Friday and had a long drawn out thing.
Yeah, but they also, a heart attack is as good a reason as any for a final abrupt thing if there's some kind of chronic condition. Because I don't know about you, but I did have a teacher or two who you would find out outside of things like had been quietly with dignity battling cancer while not bringing that into their stern lessons in the classroom.
Yeah.
And I think that
Absolutely.
enough of us had that archetype in our life that it was a real touchstone, and I thought they executed it really well.
Yeah, and it was somewhat of its time. I think if they would have done it today, there would have been more hemming and hawing and the teacher letting on a little bit more. I thought it was very 1968 of them, and even probably 1990 of them, to have the teacher not explain. Like, and also not even apologize, just like, it was a sorry, but not a like, I have something going on. It was, I can't be there. You're just going to have to buck up and do it yourself.
Well, and it was nowadays, even if we're retro setting it in 1990, 35 years ago, there would be baked into the teacher character enough of a, hey, I'm sorry, kid. A little bit of kind of fourth wall breaking.
I wish I could be there, but
exactly.
Anyway,
a little bit of soft encouragement, but instead it was classic old school. Like, nope, this is my totally neutral face. Either you're going to do the thing or not.
Yeah, and you could argue whether it's cringy or cheesy that he just didn't grade Kevin's paper and left a blank one, and the principal caught on. And
I loved it.
Yeah, I loved it too. And I loved Kevin's response to it. I loved the voiceover response of like, I need to step up and do this, and I can do it. And I love the self-confidence of like, you don't have to grade it. It's an A. I knew what I was doing. It worked.
And by the way, which you definitely get to do when it's math, because you pretty much know
whether you knew or
right.
not. Yeah, and if you guessed, you probably got it wrong. So yeah, no, that's a good point.
Favorite moment for me, Tom, was when he goes up and he knocks on the teacher's lounge door, and there's that pregnant pause before the door opens. And I remember thinking, I was just like, please show someone smoking. Please show someone smoking. Open it up. Not disappointed, Tom. Dude with a big old pipe inside the teacher's lounge.
Absolutely. That's what our teacher's lounge smelled like in 1990. I was already out of high school by then, but it certainly smelled like that in 1984 through 1988. Also, he had my actual Algebra 1 textbook.
No way.
I was like, oh yeah, the red and blue crosshatch. Like that was my Algebra 1 textbook in 1983. I don't know what it was doing on the set in 1990. If it was just like, run down to the thrift store and find an old algebra textbook, probably.
Yeah, it probably was. Well, all of those production companies, they take very seriously their cataloging of period appropriate everythings. So my guess is it was bought for a production 7 years ago, cataloged as current algebra book 1983 or whatever, and then thrown into inventory. And somebody said, I need a 1960s era algebra book. And they're like, we don't have one, but we do have this one from 83. Yeah. Good enough. I'm almost certain something like that is what happened.
This time, as soon as I finished listening to the credits, the opening credits, I stopped, opened Apple Music, and listened to the Joe Cocker version, and clearly could tell the difference.
Yeah.
So I almost feel like I need to apologize for not being able to tell the difference the first time I listened.
Well, I'll take that plunge next week when we discuss it. I got to tell you, man, full experience so far. The Wonder Years is being very good too. As a fine standalone episode, and I think it benefits. It's interesting. We've seen this happen both with an ultimate episode and with a lowest episode. In the past, the lowest episode of The West Wing was a solo side quest that wasn't the main narrative,
right,
but was a perfectly fine, standalone, serviceable story that was prescient of a type of media storytelling that we would get later in life that we liked a whole lot. And in this case, the ultimate, to my surprise and delight, stands alone as a fine two-person drama, with a little bit of principle sprinkled in here and a narrator who won't shut up. There's a lot of dialogue for that narrator.
Yeah. It's the Wonder Years thing. It's why whenever you see a parody of the Wonder Years, it's always like, I knew that my shoe was untied, but Winnie was looking at me and blah, 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 blah. I think the full experience succeeds if you come out of the 4 episodes with a way to talk about a show that matches up with someone who just watched the entire run. Right? Like you should match up 90% with, oh, that show did this. This was important to it. It felt like this. Talking about the MASH full experience, it doesn't match up with my experience of watching MASH when it was airing, but I don't doubt it might match up with the experience of someone watching the entire run now, should they do it.
Yeah, they'll be as bored and as confused as to why it was.
I could be wrong. It could be a lot better. And I love MASH. Don't get me wrong. I do. I didn't watch Wonder Years. I watched the first episode and maybe caught a part of another episode. But I do feel like I'm getting the flavor just based on all the other cultural references I've experienced about the show over the years.
You know what? That's a good question, Tom. Is folks, I'd be curious to know if anybody out there had watched all of the Wonder Years and whether or not they would have, in the bucket of episodes, pulled this out as their pick for the ultimate, or if there was some other one that
they think was better.
Yeah.
Maybe you think season 5, episode 7, soccer is the ultimate episode, but most people disagree with you.
We have problems.
Yeah. Before we get to that though, real quickly, you may see this episode, Goodbye, listed as season 3, episode 19 instead of 20. Sometimes it was weird. In Apple TV, one time I looked, this was listed as episode 19 because they put the episode Faith after it, even though Faith aired before it. And I was like, oh, that must be a production order versus the order they aired it in. Sometimes they air it differently than they produce them. But then when I went back and looked at Apple TV later, Goodbye was episode 20 again. So I don't know if it was different screens or what, but if you do see this listed as episode 19, that's why. It's production order versus airing order. And yes, next episode, how are you feeling about watching November 20th, 1991 soccer?
To be honest, I'm kind of looking forward to punching down for a change. It's like, stop over-delivering, Wonder Years. Show me some hot garbage.
Show me yourself at your worst.
Let me mock your worst so I can celebrate your best.
Fantastic. Well, that's what we will watch next time. Please join us, and you will get these episodes earlier than everybody else if you're a patron. You can become a patron by signing up at patreon.com/Cordkillers. Thanks, everybody, for being with us. Talk to you next time.